Welcome everybody to the international room, and just to give a bit of a reinforcement of what was said from Karen's message there, that the right to defend and the right to protest is under attack, and the right for us to protect ourselves against murderous governments. And I think that's really important in terms of what's going on with our international sisters abroad. So I'm going to introduce, first of all, is it Fabienne Dimmer? I do apologize, Fabienne, if I am mispronouncing your name.
No, all good.
Okay, fabulous. Fabienne has been a volunteer on the migrant route for many years. And she does a lot of direct work with migrants and volunteers on behalf of the Catch a Smile organization, who are based in London. And therefore, no, where are you based, Fabienne?
I think I'm the only one not based in England. Unfortunately, Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, okay, okay, wow, thank you. So I'll let Fabienne actually talk us through what she does, the women she helps to support, and what we can do as well to widen the impact of her work. Thank you. Fabienne, would you like to
start?
Start, yes, please.
Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation. Actually, basically, I didn't really know what was it all about. I mean, I knew international solidarity and this all. So yes, I'm a volunteer. I'm from Luxembourg, and I'm going on the different ground since a few years. Basically, many of it started around 2015 when it was the first big wave of refugees and migrants coming in. And we saw throughout Europe many people going out and just helping. I started on the same period going out, and mainly at the beginning, of course, it was Greece. We knew at the time the big camp Idomeni, which was on the border to Macedonia. After that, the route when the borders got shut down of the European Union. We saw the movements, people were started to get stuck. It's a bit stuck, you all probably know from Calais and Dunkirk, it's the same stuck. So what I do is I go out on the borders where people are stuck throughout Europe. For the moment, I focus mainly on Bosnia since 3 years, and Calais, Dunkirk, and Paris. These are my main goals, my main points where I always go. The thing is, it's funny, because what I heard before about the protest and the government doing this, it's funny because the rights of refugees and migrants are non-existent at all. They don't talk even about rights on doing some protests. This would be nice if they would have a right to protest, because it's non-existing. It's non-existing on having correct food, on having correct housing, on having correct medical care, on having anything. When you are when you are on the road, like we call them people on the move. If it's in Greece, if it's in Serbia, it's in Bosnia, in France, wherever, there are no rights for them. They are just called the illegal ones. They are called the migrants, refugees, but we have to say it's a mix of, and why categorize? Someone who is on the move is on the move. When I go on the grounds, what I see, it's a huge solidarity coming from all over the world. Especially all over Europe, if it's English, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Swedish, Norway, whatever. People go on different grounds and just help. It's apart from the big NGOs, which you know. You have all those big NGOs like Red Cross, Caritas, Oxfam, you can all name them, but they are very often stuck in their entity and all the papers they have to do. And in this, between come all the grassroots, which actually do a lot of the work which no one else does. It's taking care of the people who are not in official camps, who are just on the loose. We have thousands in Athens in the streets, living in the streets. No one takes care of them except the grassroots. We have thousands in Bosnians in the streets. We have, if you take France, thousands, it's the same. On this comes the harassment of the police. It depends on which country, if it's more or less. If we go France, we see the harassment every second to third day by being dismantling a camp, taking away everything. If we go to Bosnia, we can say that the police is really okay, but the pushback comes from the European country, from the Croats, where we see people beating up, broken legs, taking everything of them, and just thrown back to another country like it's a trash, like a trash. When we see Greece, we see also, you must know that in Greece, 50% of the police is right-wing. They belong to the right-wing party, and we see also there a lot of violence towards everyone. So what we do is we go on different grounds and we see how we can support groups or locals or volunteers on giving out the most needed item, the sleeping bag, shoes, food. Yeah, if people care, it's really the next step, but it's most of them just to have that they are warm, that they have something to eat, and that they have shoes to walk in, because this is also one thing that is very often taken away is shoes. When the Croats throw people back to Bosnia, they take away the shoes to people. They let them walk. If it's -10 or -15, doesn't matter. They take away the shoes. They let people walk back to Bosnia in socks. So this is what I do. It's I go on different grounds and see how we can help and how we can support locals, because this is also one important thing, is to support locals. It's not going into a country like saying, hey, here I am, I'm the savior. No, I'm not the savior at all. But I am fortunate, and this is what we have really to see, that we actually, also the English one, you are fortunate to grow up in a country where, I agree, it's not everything perfect, not in mine, not in yours, but you have the right to protest, even if something happens in between. But we have certain, and we have to talk about the rights for those who cannot have no rights. So yeah, so this is also one of the main things we say, and they are the forgotten ones. No one have a ship droning off a cruise in front of Italy. We have a huge impact on the news. If we have a ship sinking with 100 people coming from Libya, I mean, it's just sinking. No one cares. So this is also what the international volunteers really talk about and document on what is really completely going wrong in Europe, actually, because Europe is also very good on pointing out to others. I also take the example of Trump and his wall. Everyone spoke about the wall, but actually Europe has bigger walls than there are anywhere in the world. The walls we created and we built it, like Calais. Calais has a 4-kilometer wall paid by England, by the United Kingdom, to prevent that anyone else comes into the country. So the walls we see a bit everywhere, and the treatment, how we treat people in Europe on borders, or the borders we put in. Yeah, this is where we go and where we try to make the difference by helping the people that they survive, at least. Yeah, don't know if that's okay. Wow. If you heard me.
That's amazing. Just your work is phenomenal, and the impact of the challenge and what you're facing is immense. Those wars of division are wars of inequality that prevents access to basic human rights and justice. And what I would like to ask you is, how can we emphasize and spread your message? Because we are sanitized to these images. How can we bring it back into people's consciousness so that we can start to make it more relevant, and so people can actually campaign, pressure, and so on? What can we do to help you?
What I see very often is that people, I mean, we can spread it through media and news, and but whatever I see is that when people, if you, let's take your Facebook account, you put it for the third time on Facebook, no one will read it. It's like, oh yeah, again, I know this. What I always say is, when people are somewhere, I say travel and go off the normal roads. People go to Paris. I say, well, great. Go to Paris, but also go on the 18th and 19th district of Paris. If you are traveling from the island, because you have to travel by boat somehow, sometimes, I mean, if you're not flying, and it's France. So just make a quick stop in Calais and go around and have a look. What I experienced is that people to grab bears, but it's the small things that you have to see when you travel, and I think this is one of the biggest issues. Also, I go very often into classes. For me, it's very important to teach young children. When I go into classes, I just go into classes and say, where are you all from? And I think in England it's the same. And then they tell me, oh, my mom is here, my dad is from there, and different nationalities. And then I call them, oh, so you're all migrants. In my country, Luxembourg, for example, the English people or the French people or the German people living in my country call themselves expats. And I love nothing more to tell to them, well, actually, you're a migrant. And they say, no, Fabienne, I'm not a migrant. I say, yeah, actually, you are a migrant. You are English and you live in Luxembourg. It's the same like I'm going to England to live there. No, we are expats. And it's the different people make. Why is the Luxembourgish one going to England an expat and the Pakistani going to England a migrant? And it's making aware of the terms on how we use things, and also to going a bit offside on the roads where we visit things, because people need to see something to really understand it. I can explain 100 times that I'm in Calais when the time when there was still the jungle, but there's still a jungle in Calais, but smaller than at the time. At the time we had like 11,000 people in the jungle living. It's when you do not see it, you know the pictures, but you forget. It's like the pictures of a starving child in Africa. You know the pictures, and you say, yeah, okay, I know, but it's not catching. So for me, it's important when people travel. I say, where are you going? I say, because in every country you have this. I say, well, then maybe you just take half an hour and go over there and have a look there and see. I think this is, this is how I try to do it, and to explain it to people, because when they see it, they feel it more. I have to feel it. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Fabienne. Again, I mean, you've really emphasized the use of language and the stigmatization. Names like migrant, refugees, illegal ones, as compared to the descriptors we use for ourselves when we travel as expats. And I think we really do need to start looking at the language that demonizes people who are victims of war, genocide, and other reasons why people have to leave. Right, I would like to, obviously, we're going to have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session, but I think we've got a room for one more question, or if somebody in the audience would like to ask Fabienne a question, perhaps, before we move on to our next speaker. Okay.
I've got a question, sorry.
Hi, Amina. Hi.
Yeah. Just really quickly, it's more of a general question, but something that's been on my mind for a very long time. And someone who lives in the UK, and sometimes I forget that the privilege that we have, and obviously, you know, when you've got this passion for change, so when I'm communicating with activists in Yemen, for example, I realize the things that we ask them to do in terms of solidarity, it's impossible because their lives will be in danger and it's unethical.
Yes.
So something I always ask myself is because of course, like, you don't want to dictate people's stories, you want to give them the platform because they are activists too. But how do we create a solidarity together internationally, but also remind ourselves what is ethically right, so that we're not putting people's lives in danger?
Well, this is a very good question, and it's very difficult to ask. That's a thing which I give you an example. What we saw this winter in Bosnia, we had a camp up north. It was Camp Lipa, which burned. It burned, but what the international press and that coming into Bosnia without knowing really the situation about the country and the politics. And they created more problems for the inhabitants of the camp, actually, for the migrants and refugees living in there. So what for me is always very important is what I say is learn the country you want to help or where you want to help in. Learn the country, how the country functions, what does it mean, how the politics are in the country, and what does it mean for the locals of the country when you act like this, because we are just coming in like a week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. If we are kicked out, we are kicked out, we go home. But if we come in and we just think, oh, but you can just go out in the streets and you can protest and you have to tell this is unhuman like this camp is, and you have to do so. And then the police takes us and they just kick us out because we have a very strong passport. I mean, if an English one is killed in Yemen or Luxembourgish one, this will create international press. So they will kick us out of the country, we go. But those who stay back will have the problem. So this is what I always say to people. Before you start acting, check how the country is. And very often, in this case, is on how can you support them so they can be active in the country.
Thank you.
That's, yeah. So I would go into that direction.
Yes, some food for thought and good advice. We'll be able to come back to you, Fabienne, I'm sure, in the close of the event. I'm gonna just ask Hanna Danilovic, I beg your pardon if I have mispronounced your name, for our next speaker. So amazing, powerful women. I'm really delighted to be able to host this. Hanna is a London-based academic and an international, sorry, bear with me, and an international representative of the Belarus Trade Union of Radio Electronic Workers. We heard from Hanna earlier at the opening. And so without much further ado, if Anna, could you give us some more information about the struggles and the challenges? Some of the things you pointed out were quite, I'd like to interrogate that further. Thank you, Hanna. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Anya. Well, basically, what's been happening over more than almost a year now is that there were elections in Belarus on the 8th of August last year. And despite clearly losing them, the current ruler of the country and pronounced himself a winner, and that caused massive protests. And at first, the first few days, saw millions in the street. And then the problem was that those people who, you know, the lady who won, technically, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, she left the country, and all of the people who were basically, you know, who were inducing those protests, they left the country, and people were left on their own. So the trade unions, the democratic trade unions, because we also have official unions in the country who support the management. They're not really unions, to be honest. The democratic unions had to basically step in and try to organize people. So since then, there was a ongoing protest movement, and the protest movement has been persecuted, and people are jailed, beaten up, just because they can walk in the street and just get beaten up just because maybe the police doesn't like the way they're dressed, because the opposition supports the old red and white flag, and anything that resembles that is now being banned. So if you walk in and you happen to have, you know, a white shirt and a red skirt, you may be sort of stopped and detained and fined for whatever invented fake thing they can actually think about. The first few months were the worst in this sense, because so many people were jailed, and they even created sort of something like the concentration camps, because they were just keeping people outside without food or water on the ground for days and days on, and just beating them up. And they didn't care, men, women, children, old, they simply don't care. And this thing continues. So it is horrible in Belarus, and you know, it's especially hard for women, because they were pushing on female protesters the hardest way, because the authorities use children as blackmail, because, you know, once you're detained, you get a criminal record, and once a woman gets a criminal record, then, or, you know, any of the parents gets a criminal record, and that gives the authorities the sort of a reason to come in and put the family as socially unstable, which means that at any point they can come in and take your children to the state orphanage, because you know, you're considered to be unsafe parents. And we had stories after stories after stories of all of that. We have horrible stories of women being raped in jails, using all sorts of things. We have people just, you know, detained just because. As I said, we have we have children who are detained, and their parents get in trouble just because they were walking past the protest. And we have the old ladies club, which they even decided not to gather in a building or even in a park. They decided to get on a train and have a train ride together and read a book, and that was enough. So they had a policeman on the train who basically stopped the train and had them all detained, and they all got fines, and some of them got up to 15 days in jail. And that's the usual thing. So Belarus lives in horror at the moment, and that's the sad reality. The unions are trying to do what they can. I mean, the democratic unions. Our union is probably the strongest of the four that exist, and we try to help, you know, provide some legal help, provide advice, but the problem is that they now started to crush the unions. The offices in Minsk were raided about on the 16th of February. They just take all equipment, cut open safes, take membership lists, take everything, and then invent charges and charge people. For example, we have one of our activists, she's from Brest. She's recently got a 2-year house arrest just because she was in the protest, and because of that, she can only go out for work. And the only work she could find right now is, I mean, she's a construction engineer, but she couldn't find any work. So the only way she could get any work, so the children are not taken away, she works in a fish processing plant, cutting fish. So that's what it is these days. And we're trying to support people as much as we can, but well, under the pressure internationally, we try to do what we can do, but again, that's unfortunately is frequently not enough, because the problem we have is that people who basically betrayed the protesters, they now decided that they claim themselves as the only official opposition, and whatever solidarity there is, they insist it goes through them, but in reality is just part of the former elite, to be honest, and they don't care about workers. And that's another sad reality of us, that we have to fight not just the regime itself, but people who try to basically take the attention from what's happening, and what's happening is truly horrible. So I'd love to answer any questions I can, and thank you all for solidarity with Belarusian workers. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you for sharing the toxic environment of systematic and structural censorship that's eroded the democracy of freedom that perhaps you once had, and it's really slipping away. You know, you're fighting two forces here. You're fighting the regime and the former elites. Does anybody want to ask Hanna any questions regarding what you just heard?
I have a question. Which press would you read about it?
Well, you can read the most of the social media that are on Facebook, they're all Russian in Russian, so it's hard to, I mean, for non-Russian speakers to do that. And then Belarus was a lot in the news in the very first days, but then it sort of got off, and it comes in from time to time when another wave of protests erupts, and then it all goes quiet. It just, you can't really, you know, there's so much evidence about what's happening, but it's mostly all in Russian. I mean, I can point you towards the evidence, but it's, you know, most of it is in Telegram chats, and is in Russian speaking opposition media. You can read, our union has a very good website, and we have an English page, so let me just type it in the chat.
Please.
That's the union website, and we have the English version of that, so you can read on what's happening. Not everything is there, because you know, we mostly publish what's going on, you know, major events, and we publish about what's going on about with the workers' strike. There are chats, there's media. Well, most of it is controlled by those groups that surrounded the former presidential candidate. And unfortunately, she decided to play along. So we asked, the leadership of the union asked her advisors to basically come join forces with her team and the unions, and they declined, because it's much easier for them to be with the other side, which is led by people from the former elite who decided to show, oh well, now we're opposition, although it's not really opposition. You're not really opposition when you served faithfully, when you serve the dictator faithfully for a quarter of a century, and then suddenly, because he kicks you out and you stop being a minister, then you suddenly decide, like, I'm in the opposition, I'm going to catch the trend. So that's the reality there. So that put the union that I represent on basically the edge of, we are at the very, very sort of end of the spear of a worker struggle at the moment. Yeah, that's the reality of us.
Can I just ask if you have got contact with UK unions helping you, because we do have, like, in Unite.
Yeah, I tried my best to get in contact with TUC, but what happened is that the elite opposition, they have the means. They organized at the very first days of protest, they organized a fund and quite a few campaigns, which the union believes are run by people who also serve the regime. And they organized Buy Soul, which is the main fund, where they campaign to get every bit of solidarity through them. And they even have a project for diaspora, which is called the National Embassies everywhere. And I mean, these are genuine people who want to help, and it's really hard. It's really hard to see them being used like that. But these guys got to diaspora, and they got to the unions through their contacts somehow. And when we tried speaking to TUC, they said, "Oh, we're working with the Belarusian diaspora." Well, to be honest, they're not working with the unions. They're just working with these few activists who report to who report to that team. So there is no union to union work with the British unions at the moment. Right.
Okay, so if we will get your details, and I will pass them on to the Unite community. And if we use the grassroots of Unite, I think we'll be able to get some support. We'll be able to get some support for you. So yeah, if I haven't got your details already, I'll get it. Or if you'd like to pop it in the chat, but I'll make sure I can link you with some of the trade union activists and organizations here. At least that way you're directly accessing that yourself.
Anya, I think Leslie may also have a question.
Okay. Yeah, one question, and then we've got our 7 p.m. just slightly running a bit late, but go on, Les.
Yeah, it's just quickly, because it actually follows on from what you've just said, Anya. It's just about how we can help directly the free trade unions, because they're operating in very difficult circumstances. And I would also say, Fabienne, your work is wonderful. Maybe one of the actions we can look at is spreading information about solidarity, in a whole variety of countries, but some of these struggles. Thank you.
Thank you again, amazing work. And this is, when women collectively come together, we can create change. And tonight should really help us to formulate some action plans and how we can reach out and show solidarity to our sisters internationally. This leads me on to Grazia Di Michelle. I hope I'm not really killing people's names. Awful, because I've got a very difficult to pronounce name myself. Grazia is a feminist historian and a health activist. She's been diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 30. And having dealt with this personal challenge, she started the collective blog Le Amazzoni Furious to make the debate produced by North American political breast cancer movement available to Italian women. She currently lives in Guadalajara in Spain, where she is reporting today. Now, hopefully with the wonders of technology, we're going to zoom in on the streets of Guadalajara and directly connect with Sister Grazia, who's going to give us, what is it? A real-time discussion of what she's up to there and how she's helping women to overcome some of the health barriers that we all face. Leslie, what's the statistic of women and breast cancer? Do you know? Because I know you're part of the Save the Women's Health.
You know, that's one statistic I don't actually know, but Grazia might well know the statistics for Italy or Spain. Okay,
right.
Sorry.
And is Grazia, are you here? Are you connected to Grazia? I can't. Right. Yay. Hi. Yeah. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us on the streets of, you'll have to help me out pronounce it, Guadalajara. Thank you so much.
It's Guadalajara. Yeah.
Guadalajara.
Yeah, sorry. I can't hear you very well, but I want you to see the people. Yeah. Can you see the street? So here we have a flag. Can you see the proper flag of Comisiones Obreras, which is the major union here in Spain? And here it is, a banner expressing solidarity to the women in Madrid, because the the HM protest has been forbidden in Madrid today. Well, because of the pandemic, but also because last year this time in Spain, the COVID pandemic was not widespread. And so there was a demonstration last year in all the cities here in Spain. And then a fascist party called Vox accused feminists and their demos to be the cause of the spread of the virus, which is ridiculous. Oh, they're going to start maybe in a while. So this year in Madrid, all the protests and all the marches that used to take place have been forbidden. And in other places in Spain too, but not in Guadalajara, luckily. So we are about half an hour far from Madrid. So here, apparently, the feminists are allowed to, well, this is not going to be a proper demonstration, it's a rally. So as you can see, people are wearing masks, even if we are in the street, they are well distanciated. And in a short while, there will be somebody reading a statement and expressing solidarity to all the women who have been allowed to work throughout the pandemic in all the key sectors. And many died of COVID too, while working in these key sectors. They are allowed to take public transportation every single day to go to work, but then they are not allowed in Madrid, for example, to protest and to stage their demonstrations as usual on 8th March. So I don't know, as you can see, there's a lot of police, and here is a ribbon, a purple ribbon, where there are journalists as well. Here there is the purple ribbon, and there's in the middle, there's the symbol of the Guadalajara feminist platform, well, which is a symbol of feminism too. And there are other banners as well. So here we have Huelga Feminista 8 Marzo, which means feminist strike 8 March. If we stop, the world stops. And here is another banner of solidarity with women in Chile. So if you remember what happened last year in Chile with this collective formed by young women and a song which went worldwide, yeah. And so here is a couple of lines from the song, El Estado opresor es un macho violador. And yeah, so it's not as crowded. I've been told that it's not as crowded as it used to be. But the unions are here, and there are also other people. Can you see? It's a long street. And here, they're starting now.
Hola, buenas noches a todas y a todos. Lo primero de todo, muchísimas gracias.
Feel free to cut me when my time runs out. So I'm now going to show you what they say. All right?
Okay, that's great. Well, you know, we feel like we're there with you. Yeah, in spirit and strength.
I'm sorry, I can only show you things.
Lo siento, pero intenten no hacerlo ahí. Aguanten un montón, por favor, por el bien y por de todas las personas que estamos participando. Y importante que en todo momento, eso, mantengan la distancia de seguridad para que hagamos el acto de la forma adecuada y no pongamos a nadie en riesgo. Entonces, que sepan ustedes que van a pasar por el centro 2 personas con una pequeña batucada y que vamos a leer el acto, un comunicado. Posterior a ese comunicado se escuchará una canción y una vez terminado esto, la concentración se disolverá poquito a poco. Por favor, no hagan corros. Sé que es difícil no saludarse, no abrazarse, no quererse, no amarse, pero por el bien de todas y todos vamos a hacerlo de la manera más ordenada y más segura posible, para que no pongan en cuestionamiento el movimiento.
Dile chao a las inglesas.
Y a toda la humanidad hacer lo contrario. Así que, con la explicación, vamos a dar paso a que las compañeras de la batucada, que son 2 personas, se sitúen en el centro y van a ir pasando a lo largo de aquí. También
Están arriba. I'm going up because there's going to be a show which I don't understand exactly what it is, what it's going to be. You can read this. La lucha feminista es nuestro hogar. Our struggle is our house. No, feminist struggle is our house. Can you see how long this line is? all these women, well, there are men as well. So it's a very long line. It's wonderful. So many people. Well, a dog as well, a feminist dog. Oh, this is wonderful. All these people, despite what the fascists said, and what even the gender equality representative of the local government of Guadalajara, she said that she's feminist, but she was not going to demonstrate. But people didn't listen and they came. Hola, hola. All right, now, so what they call the batucada should start. I've never seen it. Oh, here they are. Can you see them? No, no puedo ir enfrente de ellas. Okay. They're going to risk something for this, but they're going to do it anyway. Woo! You're going to be fine for this. They don't seem to care. Okay, moving forward toward the place where the statement will be read. It's been a pleasure for me to be with you and to show you all this, and hopefully I will see you again when, in a calmer situation. Bye. Saludos feministas.
Thank you. Thank you so much for connecting with us. And we have everybody 42, 41, 40 seconds counting down to return back to the main room. So if we could all, it's been an amazing discussion today, but if you could all return to the main room and we could connect with the other women and feedback. Thank you.